Everybody, this is the Building, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee. It is Wednesday, the 24th of September, 2025. It is 4 o'clock. Welcome. The first item on the agenda, we got to do the roll call, please.
Chairperson Mike Seville.
Present.
Vice Chair Patty Smith. Alderman Javier Bañuelos.
Here.
Alderwoman Juani Garza.
Here.
Alderman at Large Will White.
Here.
4 present.
We have 25-0728, approval of the minutes from the BZ&E committee meeting held on September 10th, 2025. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Moved by Alderwoman Garza, second by Alderman Bañuelos. Any corrections, additions, or deletions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0. Are there any members of the public wishing to give comment?
We do not.
Okay, we'll move on to the agenda then. 25-0738, an ordinance vacating a water main easement and cross-access easement on the property located south of Bilter Road and west of North Eola Road in DuPage County, Aurora, Illinois, 60502.
Can you read the other two agenda items?
Oh, yeah, they're all together, right. So we have two resolutions following that, 25-0735. Resolution approving a revision to the final plat for lots 1 and 5 of Butterfield Phase 2, Unit 5A subdivision on vacant land located south of Bilter Road and west of North Eola Road, and establishing Lot 1 of Butterfield Phase 2, Unit 5A re-subdivision number 1. And the last one is 25-0736, resolution approving a revision to the final plan on Butterfield Phase 2, Unit 5A subdivision and Butterfield Phase 2, Unit 5A re-subdivision number 1 located south of Bilter Road and west of North Eola Road. Take it away, Jill.
Good afternoon, Jill Morgan, Senior Planner. I'm just going to try to briefly introduce the project, kind of give you some background to it, and then the petitioners are here with a complete presentation.
Okay, thank you.
So as the Alderman stated, so the petitioner Edge is requesting a consolidation of 2 smaller lots into 1 larger lot, along with associated easement dedications. Concurrently with the proposal, the petitioner is requesting a final plan revision on Butterfield Phase 2, Unit 5A subdivision and the new Butterfield Phase 2, Unit 5A re-subdivision number 1 for a warehouse distribution storage services 3,300 use in the form of a data center. The details of the request include the development of 850 square foot data center. As you might recall, back in 2023, there was an improved final plan for Butterfield Phase 2, Unit 5A for an electronic data center complex consisting of 2 209,000 square foot buildings and 1 approximately 415,000 square foot building along with electrical substation. Prior to the approval of final plan, there were entitlements to a PDD revision allowing a warehouse in the form of a data center only on this lot. So previously, warehouses were not permitted on the lot, so we did, City Council approved a revision to allow a data center only on this lot. The picture, instead of the 2 smaller buildings that were originally proposed, the developers are proposing 1 larger building. While the final plat is just for the 2 lot consolidation, the final plan is for the entire complex, as the modifications from 3 buildings to 2 buildings slightly changed the overall complex. So here is the final plan. And then let me also bring up the landscape plan. Kind of small, but you can see the whole site there. The revised landscape plan, generally here's the original landscape plan with some modifications to accommodate the larger building. The landscape plan still shows the views of the buildings and the substation are heavily buffered with berms and trees. A lot of that is actually already installed, so the part that looks kind of in the light gray around the outside of the complex has already been installed with the first building construction. So the remainder on more the interior landscaping along with the substation landscaping will be installed with this phase. So currently the first building, which you see here, has been constructed. The electronic substation is planning on submitting for permits soon. So now we are looking at this 1 larger new building that's the main focus of the final plan revision. And we're also doing that vacation of some easements as well. At Planning Commission, the Planning Commission recommended approval with a list of conditions. We were still working out the exact verbiage of those conditions. We have finalized that verbiage with the developers. So after the presentation, I will read into the record the new recommended conditions. They are just kind of changing the verbiage slightly, but the intent that Planning Commission had approved is still there. Is there any questions for staff?
Any questions of the committee? No?
Let me bring up their presentation.
Okay, petitioners are welcome to step forward. You can adjust the microphone if you need to.
Name and address, is that what you said?
And name is, and who you represent.
Yeah, so my name's Doug Hauser. I'm with Seafried Properties. We are the developer working with Edged, who is the end user of the data center complex. With me is a team. We've got Rick Williams is our zoning attorney, Patrick Rice is with Edged, and Joe Keefe is our sound consultant. In case you guys have questions, we're here to answer them for you after the presentation. We'll get going. So this is the project team, mostly local designers and consultants. The one consultant that is not listed on here that is here today is Ostergaard. Ostergaard is a noise consultant, again here today if there are any questions. A little bit about Edged. They're a global data center operator providing co-location and build-to-scale data center solutions for cloud, enterprise, and service providers. They're global. They have a footprint in the United States, Portugal, and Spain. They have sustainability at their core, so they're the first ground-up platform designed for zero water usage. So the history, it goes down a couple bullet points, but the history of the company, they were founded by a group of folks who came from Skanska, Mission Critical, and Aligned Energy most recently in 2011. They spun off of that group to try to create a similar but more sustainable group of data center providers. There's also Endeavor's Women in Technology group. That's a group within the company supporting women in this field. They bring in speakers. They do. They also do scholarships. They do presentations to local. I think they're actually talking with some of your folks about trying to do some presentations at local schools. And then at the bottom is so the name at the top is that's kind of the mothership of companies, if you will, Endeavor. Edged is all the way on the bottom left. That's the data center group under the Endeavor group of companies. So Edged does their data centers. That's who owns this site and will operate this data center. But they have sister companies that work hand in hand to help create this sustainable overall solution. One of them is Thermal Works, second from the right. That is the group that creates, they actually manufacture their own chillers, which we'll go through in some more detail here later in the presentation. But again, this group of 6 companies, Edged is on the left. That's who owns and will operate this site. Next slide is just a list of some of the relationships that Edged does have with end users, some groups that they will try to attract to the Aurora area. Here's a timeline. They purchased and rezoned the site back in April 2023, started building construction right away. We completed building 1 back in December of last year, and then started talking with the development services team earlier this year, submitted our plans in July, and are hoping to start construction before the winter of this year with the goal of completion before the end of next year, 2026. This is the overall location aerial. As you can see, and as I'm sure you know if you've studied this area, there's been there's been some other data center development. So the reason being is the location is very applicable to data center development. So in the southeast corner down here is a substation with capacity. It had significant capacity from ComEd. It's also just north of I-88, which has significant fiber infrastructure. And then the 65 acres that they bought allows for some scale and co-location. This next slide is an aerial draw up of what the new building will look like. Up in the top is the existing building that's there today, that's been operating for 6 months now, I think is probably around the right time. Future substation will go here, right along Eola. We're building, Edged is under contract and working through that with ComEd. Here's the overall site plan with north being to the northeast, paper northeast, but this is just going to show you some of the renderings that are on the next slide, next couple of slides. So there's a view from Bilter, a view from Eola, and then a view of the substation. Here's your view from Eola. This is looking across the detention pond. Here is the view from Bilter Road, which actually we worked with staff to spiff up this end of the building. This is, you might look at this and think that it is an office end. It is not. The office is at the other end. These glass elements will all be spandrel glass, so there's nothing behind them. But we dressed up the building to try to make it look like it was an office, being that that was the view that you were going to see from Bilter Road. Here's the view from the substation. So again, we're looking to conceal any of the machinery, just like here in these. Actually, it's probably best in this first picture. This will be a similar product that conceals the substation that's concealing, in this picture, our generator yard. Here's a view of some of the what the inside of the building might look like. It'll be high-end space in that office area. Here's some elevations. I threw this in here just more if there are questions, what kind of materials we're using. It's going to be a precast structure with glass. We have altered some of the height, and then you create depth feel with different colors, color schemes, and reveals within the concrete. And again, more details just in case we get any questions on it. A good slide talking about neighborhood-friendly design. So this is low traffic impact. 60 passenger vehicles per day is what's estimated there. Truck traffic only during construction. This is, I know we actually had the site under contract for a different user, and at one point there was a concern for traffic in the Big Woods and Ginger Creek neighborhoods to the west on Bilter, so that should take care of any of those concerns. Design. The stormwater on this site actually exceeds the site requirements, so that substation is going to have its own, it'll have its own detention, so this detention is oversized, so it'll help with the infrastructure in the general area when it comes to stormwater. Corridor aesthetics. With the first building, actually, we installed some landscaping medians along Bilter Road. I think they go across our entire frontage. They do, actually. It's up here. So again, beautifying the corridor, and then public EV charging. So up here in the north corner, there's a parcel that's been split off that will serve as an EV charging station. So and that's open to the public, and that'll be powered from the power that facilitates, or that's sent to these buildings. So excess power will be used to power up these EV charging stations and will be given to the public for access. We'll start with a ramp up of the first 8 EV charging stations, and then as these guys, so Edged, it's actually, if I go back a couple slides, one of the sister companies has created this created, I don't know what the right word is, but it's not software, but they've created a way to power these, they're called grid block, to power these EV chargers off of their building power. So pretty neat and neighborhood friendly stuff, putting power back on the grid. The equipment, the generators will all be designed with vibration isolation mounts on the engines. That's the group that they buy this from. It's called Power Secure. They install those on day one. Those engines, or the generators, will also be T4, which I'll get to a little bit later, but sustainability, here on the next slide. So I'll jump there right now. So these, the engines will be Tier 4 high efficiency clean generators. That's the cleanest, most efficient option money can buy right now for any of these facilities. And then I'll go back up and hit on the other bullet points here. So Energy Star, this building is looking to achieve Energy Star. It's by the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. It designates the top 20% of the nation's most energy efficient buildings, and it's an average of 30% annual energy and emissions savings in all these buildings. So it'll be a very good energy efficient building. There's zero water cooling in these facilities, as I mentioned earlier. So it's a closed loop system. Instead of using and cycling water from the municipality, it'll have a closed loop water system that actually gets refilled off-site. They derive the formula of glycol and water off-site, and that formula needs to be exactly right in order to keep their chillers running as efficiently as possible. So it won't even use, when we refill that water line, it won't even reuse water from Aurora. It'll be shipped in. And then again, the third bullet point there, integrated electric vehicle charging. And then the last bullet point, energy recovery wheels in the office, HVAC design. Looks like I had a typo there with the 4, but energy efficiency is definitely in every element of this design. Economic benefits for the community. So the projected Aurora tax utility benefit is just about $3.5 million a year. Projected real estate taxes are $800,000 a year. As I showed in a couple of slides earlier, Fortune 100 tenants looking to relocate and potentially redevelop other elements of their business in Aurora. High-tech full-time paying jobs. Full-time jobs are 40 to 60 people, 2,000 construction jobs over the 3 to 5 year period to build this entire campus. Zero municipal or local economic incentives have been requested, and then minimal impact to the taxing body. So a big benefit to the city of Aurora here. And then infrastructure improvements will come along with this investment, should benefit the regional power grid. Here's a couple slides on sound emission. So this is in the sound report that our friends at Ostergaard provided. So the group of receptors is what they're called, A, B, C, D. Over here are the homes. We're over 1,300 feet away from those homes. That's what we look to make sure we're not sending any decibel levels over regulations to those receptors, which we are not, and that's what this diagram shows. So what we've done in order to accomplish that, we actually worked with staff and we increased the height of our parapet walls, so our solid concrete parapet walls that go above the roof and enclose those chillers on the north side will be 8 to 12 feet tall, and then on the west sides here, west and east sides of the building, those will be 8 feet tall and 4 feet on the south side to provide shielding towards those residences. This project will also use maglev, so they're magnetic levitation chillers for the data centers chilling or cooling, critical cooling, which uses low friction magnetic bearings in the compressors, operates with reduced vibration and significantly lower noise compared to other traditional chillers. And again, these chillers are made by their sister company, Thermal Works, so it's a kind of a hand-in-hand act to make sure we're neighborhood friendly here. This, another study here, this is with chillers and generators operating, every single piece of equipment operating at the same time, which is a very, very low likelihood of happening, but still under the threshold of any regulation. So we've also worked with staff, and Jill will read it when she reads the conditions, but one of the conditions is that ownership will retain an independent third-party acoustical consultant to conduct sound testing under operating conditions. So not just, they'll go verify this sound study, that it actually works in real life. The results of the study will be submitted to the city to verify compliance with all applicable state of Illinois regulations. And then no certificates of occupancy will be issued until the city has received confirmation of compliance. The generator yards, as I showed in a couple of renderings, those will have full height walls to enclose all of the generators. Acoustical modeling shows, again, that predicted sound levels will comply with all state of Illinois regulatory limits, and we will verify that in the field. Zoning, this is, just put this slide on here. This is dating from back in 2023 when we rezoned this to allow for data center use. So it's a by right data center use. And then a little bit about Sea-Free Properties. We're local. We're up near the airport in Rosemont. We've done a bunch of work here in Aurora. Love working with you guys. Traditionally, we're doing more warehouse facilities, but we have great experience with you guys and appreciate working with the city of Aurora. And that is the end of my presentation. Any questions or?
Any
We need somebody
questions
else up
of
here?
the developer at this point?
I have a question.
Alderman Banos.
You had indicated that you guys are going to do a test to verify the noise levels, right? Will the test be done at night as well? Because during the day is different, because you have a whole bunch of other, other stuff going on. Will the test also be done at night?
Yeah, if the problem comes at night, then the test would be done at night. So there's different levels, there's different requirements for daytime and nighttime. So if the issue comes at nighttime, you'd have to do the test to validate it at night.
Alderman White.
So I'm still learning how the communities are cut up. What ward is this in? Do you know?
This is in the 10th ward, I believe.
10th, okay.
Yeah.
10, okay, so question. Well, Alderman Bade has expressed much concern about the current data center in Ward 10 and the noise level there. Is that data center one that you all have built, or is that a different company altogether?
I think what you guys, what you might be talking about, Mr. White, is down here. That's a competitive data center of ours. It is not
Got it.
ours. It's also, I think, a little closer to any residential receptor as well. But they use different, they don't use our chillers. They can't use our chillers. We have proprietary chillers.
My concern is I see how close yours is to, I'm assuming to the left is a community development.
Yeah, these are the receptors here that were shown in the sound study. Can you guys see my mouse?
Yes, sure, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a community center to the left, correct?
Correct.
Right,
Those
right,
are
okay.
yeah.
Residents.
Those are homes. Those
Okay.
those do exist. But we
Okay.
Yep. And that's what the sound study looked at. Is that those were the closest homes, the closest receptors that we need to make sure we're under decibel levels.
Okay, so my assumption is I wasn't on council when the one south was, came through and was built. My assumption is the sound study was done and so forth. But it seems like there still were issues. So I question a sound study well, what I wouldn't want is to have a sound study, we pass everything, and then now we have the issue up north and the issue down south.
Sure.
And it's impacting our residents even more. So I'm wondering how, I don't know if you could answer this question, but
Yeah, sure.
how
can.
do we know that this facility will have as low impact as you're suggesting?
So we will verify it in the field. So that's what we worked again with staff to confirm. So not only will we do this, or have we done this sound study, which is showing the results that you're seeing on the screen, but so before we get occupancy, before staff will give us the right to occupy that building and use that building for what we need to use it for, to monetize it, we will have to take another sound study of what is in place. So we'll have a receptor, we'll actually have a microphone at, wherever we need to have it to verify that the sound study is accurate.
Okay, and I'm still learning sound studies, so you're saying that you will run the building as it would be functional to see if there's any impact?
Not only will we run the building as it's functioning,
Yeah.
we'll run the building at the worst possible function,
Okay,
which in all likelihood mechanically won't actually happen. But we'll turn all of the generators on, all of the chillers on, and we will make sure that sound at that receptor is
okay.
what it is in the study.
And and then based on that, if it passes, then you occupy, the building is
Then
occupied.
Staff will allow
Okay.
occupancy. Correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
Understood. And another question I have is I appreciate the zero water usage. That's it. From my understanding, data centers do use a lot of resources. And I'm wondering, I know you mentioned the electricity usage, and is this electricity usage less than most data centers, or is there any difference at all?
Yeah, so I would say so, and maybe, Pat, if you have any color, you can probably come up, but I would say one of the ways that a group like Edged, unlike other data centers, can give back to the grid is with this EV charging system. But any other color you want to add, Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, how's it going? Patrick Rice. I'm with Edged. Great question about the electricity. So the way data centers, and I was new to the data center industry 5 years ago when I started working here. Buildings tend to be based on square footage of how many square feet a building is. In data center world, it's how many megawatts is your building, because that's how everything's leased out. You lease out by the megawatt. So the actual electricity usage that you're using for IT loads for these customers is kind of the same no matter where you are, right? It's going to be a certain number of megawatts because they plug in their racks, they want to have that much power, and they make things more efficient on their end, but then they just add more to it to use as much power as they can in the building. Where the distinguishing factor is we call it a PUE, right? It's how much power do you use to actually operate the data center compared to what they're using, right? And there's a lot of reasons why you want a very low ratio of that. Is our chiller electricity usage, our admin electricity usage, all the stuff that uses to make the data center run day to day. You want to keep that power as low as possible because then you have a lower PUE. First of all, it's cost effective for us, right? We want to use as little power as possible because that's all overhead that we have to pay for, right? We charge the customer for electricity usage, but for our personal usage, we want to keep that as low as possible all the time. It's also better for the environment. It's better for sustainability. And so the reason why we like the ThermoWorks chillers and why they were developed under Endeavor is that they are ultra efficient chillers. That maglev that I talked about for the bearings, that's really good for sound, good for vibration. It also makes it a very efficient chiller and uses less power, which helps our bottom line when we're trying to do all this stuff. So it all kind of comes together to use as little power as possible, so we can always be have like one step ahead with everyone else, with our competitors in terms of cost and stuff like that as well. So
Thank you, I appreciate that.
No
That's a
problem.
good explanation.
I have a couple questions. You said this is a building is for spec, you don't have a user yet?
You want to comment on that?
Sure. So we are in the final stages of getting a anchor tenant into this building, just like the first building. We won't. We want to have the anchor tenant signed up before we start building the construction of this building. So we are expecting that in the next 2 weeks or so. But there's
So
a
you
few
won't
different
build the
issues.
building until you sign the contract?
We'll do it before we sign a contract. Once we have a level of comfort, we'll build it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Things are proceeding favorably.
Very favorable. I mean, the interest in data centers is the demand is very high right now. So it's
All
just
right. And that's really interesting about the water usage, because that's really one of the downsides of these data centers. So these chillers sound like it's a phenomenal idea, and maybe we can. I'm sure you're aware we're looking to put on a moratorium with these types of developments. So my question is. Will you be willing to comply with the moratorium after the fact, after we come up with new standards, or you anticipate the building being built by then?
So we would like to start construction in November. But I think is the moratorium coming into effect?
Well, it's not
soon, or-
passed yet, but it's going to be considered at a special meeting Thursday, the city council.
Yeah, so when we purchased the 65 acres back in 2023, the intent was always to develop all 65 acres, and we'd like the ability to do that.
Okay.
Hi, sorry to interrupt, but Shannon Cameron, Chief of Staff. Since the moratorium hasn't been, today we're presenting it to the Zoning Commission. This, really, anybody that has already gone through this process, it can't be, we cannot ask them to be part of that moratorium. So they could want to pause, but most people are not going to be interested in pausing their development. So, and it not being passed yet through that commission or through council, I just wanted to refocus the conversation. Thank you.
No, I understand that, but I guess what I'm asking is, would you be willing to take a look at what we do if your building is not finished and maybe adopt some of those standards?
What?
So, John, do you want to step forward and
Yes, one of my question.
Real quick, Rick Williams, attorney for the petitioner. So not knowing what the result of the moratorium is going to be, but knowing what the concerns with the existing problem data center are, which isn't us, we have worked with staff to implement conditions on ourselves above and beyond what your ordinance is required, because we don't want our neighbors to have the same concerns that our neighbor to the south has. And Alderman White, we've been operating for some period of time with no complaints, and we want to keep that. So Jill's going to go through the conditions, and I think that will give you a higher level of comfort that we're serious about meeting the concerns of the community. And if things arise as a result of the moratorium, we can take a look at it. We'd be willing to have a conversation, but without really knowing what those are, we're not in a position to commit to that.
Well, I can anticipate one of the concerns, at least from my perspective, I can only speak about myself, is noise in the future. As technology changes, you will be changing out your equipment. You plan on having this building here for a long time. And so when you do that, it's going to change what's being affected by the surrounding neighborhood. So my concern is it's great that you're looking to do a sound test now, but what about putting into this document regular sound tests for the lifetime that you guys are here? And that way we can kind of keep a handle on that with regard to future things that we don't know about, we can't predict. None of us sitting here can predict. You guys probably know the industry better than us, of course. We're always responding after the fact based on what our constituents and our city officials are advising us, So would you be willing to put in some type of condition in there now to kind of protect the neighborhood?
Yeah, I think you'll find when we go through the conditions that that's exactly what staff tried to address, is to address all of the citizen complaints that we've been getting. There are provisions for the sound testing, which Doug already mentioned, which we'll go through in the conditions as well. So the building will not be put into operation without an in-place test occurring that demonstrates there's compliance. There's also provisions in the conditions that would require them upon our asking an in-place sound test at a later date should we be getting complaints. Part of the tough thing about addressing the concerns that we've got about the other data center, again, not them, is it's difficult to prove this is it's pretty technical stuff that is behind this report that you're looking at right here. And they've been very willing to try and address all of the concerns that we brought up and agree upon conditions. So I think you'll see if we go through the conditions that we have addressed the concerns that we've been getting from neighbors, and they've been willing to add those conditions on themselves, like Rick said, willingly. And I really appreciate the fact that they're willing to do that.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to the conditions, but I'm hoping one of them is regular testing of the sound. That's really important, I think, and not just periodically, but make sure that we have a continuous comfort level. And so, when the neighbors are concerned and approach the city officials, I think we need to have an answer for them. Not that, well, we haven't done a sound test in a couple of years. I mean.
Yeah, you'll see the last condition addresses the testing.
Okay, good. So you also mentioned that we're going to generate $800,000 a year in property taxes?
That's correct.
And then you mentioned a figure of 3.5 million. What is that exactly again?
It's a utility tax that goes.
Right, it's just the electrical usage, right? And that's how over a period of what time?
That's per year.
Per year.
Annual.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to be sure before I wrote it down.
Sure.
So, I think it's really interesting about the chillers and the like we've been talking about, and I think that's going to put less stress on the city to provide that type of water as well. And so I think that's all the questions I have until I hear about the conditions here at this point in time. But I think you're moving in the right direction here from the feedback we're getting from our community. So
great.
We appreciate it.
Yeah,
I have a quick question, actually.
Yes, Alderman Ben.
You said that you don't use water, you use water mixed with what?
Glycol. So it's a water glycol mix.
Sort of like an antifreeze?
Yeah.
Okay. And then do you guys have a contingency plan if there's a spill or anything like that for that?
That'd be operations. I'll let Pat take that.
Yeah, so we have engineered, it's called an SPCC, a spill prevention containment control plan, that's engineered that we have on site and is kind of readily available with spill kits and everything like that. And the whole process of here's who you notify, here's what happens if you have a spill. So that's all operationally done. Yep.
And if the power grid goes out, you have what, diesel backup?
We have diesel backup generators, yes.
And is that in one of the conditions as well? When this diesel thing is running for the backup? Because that's more noisy, right?
Yeah. So I'll just give a little bit of color on, so that test that we're doing at occupancy, and I'm going to go a little bit more detail here than maybe we did before, but we're probably going to phase construction on this project of turning it over at different phases. So every time we have a phase, we're going to, part of our testing when we turn over a building like this to a customer is we have to test everything at full capacity, right? So we are loading the whole building up, turning on every generator, every chiller. We have to run that for a certain period of time. We don't typically do sound studies or sound analysis during that point of putting and I don't know exactly how it works, but putting a microphone at certain places to test what the sound value is. We agreed to do that condition for this project. So every time we do that commissioning process now, we are going to have actual microphones reading the decibel levels during that worst case scenario, which is when everything's loaded up full and everything's going at full bore. So that'll be generators, chillers, even the admin will be running at that point to make sure that everything is running, everything is within the levels required by the ordinance. Or
Did the attorney want to say something?
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
Mike.
Okay, good. And
Mike,
what?
I have a question for the Jan. So in case, because it's right now on the agenda for tomorrow. So in case we pass the temporary moratorium, so they planning to start in November. So what will be happening in the case we pass the moratorium?
Yeah, thanks for the question. We're going to get this question from other applicants as well. So the trigger in the moratorium that you're considering tomorrow is the application process, accepting an application for this process that's, in this case, started a long while ago. So they are
Okay.
already out in front of
So they want to base
the
depend
moratorium
when they
affecting
apply?
them. Correct. It would
Okay.
not, no matter how, I think that's what Shannon was trying to get to. No matter what we desired, our current requirements would be applied to this location. They've been willing to apply some additional safeguards, essentially, so that we can ensure that in the future that the building is still complying with what we're looking for
Okay.
noise in particular, but there's some other things as well.
So you want to explain that when you do the regulations or the criteria? So you want to explain that if they start applying like a year ago, so there's not they qualify still, or they not qualify
Yes.
depend and the time they apply.
Yes, we'll go, I'm sure that'll come up again tomorrow when you guys are discussing the moratorium. There are definitely some there are definitely some data centers that this will not apply to that we're aware of right now. But there, I think there's a couple projects that it may apply to.
Okay, thank you.
And within, the other thing that's also important to know is there are two provisions within the moratorium that still might give somebody some relief. So there's a provision in the moratorium for allowing someone to proceed at their own risk, so that it would allow us to process projects at their own risk, and they knowingly, with our acceptance and being willing to process them, they know they're going at their own risk, and the future regulations will apply to them. So that's one way that we're trying to mitigate some of the risks and perhaps some of the negative things that would happen on the development side for this consideration. That's one thing. And then secondly, there's a multifaceted test that talks about this application date, and it attempts to spell out how someone would not apply, and then if there's a hardship by that developer, that they would have the ability to come back to us with a hardship. It would go through Planning and Zoning Commission and then come back to council before it would get approved. So there's kind of multiple paths that somebody would take should there be a hardship and this moratorium. So we're trying to address the people that are kind of in the middle of projects. These projects are long lead projects. Getting this substation from ComEd started before they started their work. Probably started in 23, I would think, 22. So So that's the reason some of those provisions are in there.
Okay, thanks for the explanation.
Yeah, sure.
And some of the testing that you'll be doing with the sound, when you're running diesel, are you looking at the pollution levels that will be increasing in the area as well?
The pollution of the diesel?
Yeah.
I'm not sure on that.
So we won't be measuring the exhaust of those, right? We talked about the power blocks are tier 4, highest level efficiency standards. There are like air permits in place that we've submitted all that stuff to. I think it's Illinois handles the air permits in this area. That you submit all that and you show them kind of what your maximum number of hours are per year based on environmental considerations with the exhaust on the generators. That's a whole separate permit process that we've gone through already.
So they cap,
Microphone.
the state caps how long you're even able to use those generators for pollution.
Because of
purposes.
pollution levels.
Right.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about the neighbors as well, so.
Sure, yeah, and it's capped, there's regulations against that, and we
Okay.
wouldn't be allowed to go
Yeah.
past those regulations.
And just so you know, I addressed a little bit last night, we've done these moratoriums before from time to time. And invariably, somebody is going through the process and ready to get approval, and we haven't adopted the moratorium, it's like within days of it. So this is a usual circumstance
Sure.
as well because of the technology and the times that we're in. So we appreciate you willing to work with us and making sure we have a good quality development, as I'm sure you are committed to that too.
Yeah. And I think, most of your questions came with sound. We have our sound consultant, our sound expert, might just little 30-second.
Yeah, you come all this way, come and speak to us.
Yeah.
That's right. Hi, my name is Joe Keefe. I'm from Ostergaard Acoustical Associates in New Jersey. I did come all this way, so I thought we could just. Sorry, Doug. Which way is the? To the right. Oh, here it is. Okay. Right. So we're an independent acoustical consulting firm. We do a lot of environmental noise consulting. It's for data centers. It's for warehouses. It's for industrial facilities that use cooling towers and air conditioners and dust collectors and all sorts of things like that. So we have a lot of exposure to various types of sound sources. And someone was asking about diesel generators, and I just wanted to make the point that in any acoustical study or any numerical study, garbage in equals garbage out, right? So we pride ourselves on making sure we have a good starting point for these studies. So the chillers were tested at load by a different acoustical testing company, and we have that report. It's very detailed, gives a breakdown of all the frequency-based information, and we can take that and put that data in for each one of these chillers, which are the blue symbols you see here. And then for the generators, we were the ones who did that detailed testing. So we actually contracted with the generator manufacturer ourselves. Their company is called PowerSecure, and spent 2 days at their facility in North Carolina, building up and taking apart different size modules, testing at no load and partial load and full load and things like that, and getting acoustical data at different distances. And all that information allows us to put it all into this model, which then also accounts for reflections off the buildings, the heights of the walls, the contours of the intervening terrain, the distance, and of course adding up all the sound from everything at the site, and then predicting it at our receptors, which here we have the 4 residential receptors, A, B, C, and D, and the church at receptor E. So this model here with the more green and yellow is chillers only, and we compared those results to nighttime limits at residential receptors. And this model here with the more red is with the chillers and the generators, and we compared that to daytime limits at the residential receptors and at the church. And so we show in our study that we meet all the limits given in the Aurora and the DuPage County and the state of Illinois limits. And we're very comfortable with this finding because there's so many conservative assumptions based into it. Like Doug talked about, everything running at the worst case design condition all the time. The model also assumes that when we have wind blowing that affects how sound travels and makes it worse in a certain direction, in real life we'll only get that in one direction, but the acoustical modeling software is set to assume that happens in every direction to be conservative. And we always model things a little shorter than they actually are in terms of blocking sound, or a little taller than they actually are in terms of sending sound, because all of these things are modeled as points at the highest possible height of the equipment, but we know the sound actually comes from, a vertical gradient of area along the side of a chiller or along the side of a generator. So I'm here to answer more sound questions if you have it, but I wanted to try to put you at ease with that.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Of course.
Any questions of the sound expert? No? Thank you very much for your explanation. Welcome to Aurora.
Thank you.
Hope you can stay for a show. And Jill, this...
2 o'clock tomorrow.
Oh, good. Oh, okay. Jill, this brings to you and the conditions. You want to go over them?
All right.
These are the new updated conditions.
These are the new updated conditions. One, that the fire acts, and I should also note, some of these are being shown. We are just codifying what they are showing in the conditions. One, that the fire access plan be updated prior to building permit applications to show the fire department connection, FDC, facing the street of address, that the FDC is equipped with a 4-inch, 30 degrees downturn stores, and a paved access route is shown to the FDC from the public way. Two, that at the time of building permit application, confirmation from the third-party sound engineer that the site sound emission study matches what was submitted in the permit application shall be provided to demonstrate compliance with all state of Illinois noise regulation requirements. Three, that the third-party testing study shall be submitted demonstrating compliance of all state of Illinois noise regulation requirements prior to issuance of all certificate of occupancy permits. Four, that the generator yards be fully enclosed with full-height walls. 5, that the architectural drawings submitted with the building permit application show that the generators use vibration isolation mounts as necessary to adequately provide compliance of any regulation requirements. 6, that the architectural drawings submitted with the building permit application show fully enclosed sound attenuating screens, barriers, or parapet walls that extend around all chillers to adequately provide sound attenuation to maintain compliance of all state of Illinois noise regulation requirements. 7, that the chillers use closed-looped, high-efficiency heat transfer without regular water usage. 8, that the architectural drawings submitted with the building permit application show that the condensers, fan blades, and equipment mounts use manufacturer's sound-rated options to adequately provide compliance of all state of Illinois noise regulation requirements as determined by the architect and sound consultant. 9, that the developer agrees to install aftermarket baffles on top of each chiller if the third-party testing studies required at the time of occupancy permits showed that the site is not complying with all state of Illinois noise regulation requirements unless the developer provides another form of mitigation which achieves compliance with the state of Illinois noise regulation requirements. 10, upon request from the city, ownership shall provide an arranged third-party study of sound leaving the site if the city determines it necessary due to noise complaints. This type of testing shall be limited to either once per year or if any sound sources have been added or modified since the last noise complaint. Records of the test shall be maintained and released to the city upon request.
And you'll get that in writing and attached to the report?
Yes, it will be updated to the, as the conditions on the ordinance if the BZE committee recommends those conditions.
Okay. Any questions on the updated conditions of the committee? So I have one thing to ask, and you can verify if this, my understanding is true since this is not going on in my ward, but the Factor situation in Ward 5. They supposedly meet state standards, but it's the residents are still being bothered by the noise levels. Is that correct? And they're going above and beyond what is required by the state of Illinois to try to resolve this to the benefit of the neighbors?
We actually have referred to them some sound modeling consultants, one being Ostergaard, having been familiar with them on this project, so that they can provide those sound studies to us to validate validate the complaints and figure out how to resolve any non-compliance should it exist.
I didn't get that call yet.
You have not? Well, we got to work on that. So are we at a standstill?
No, it's not at a standstill. They're working at it on multiple fronts.
Okay, all right. So that's my concern is they say, well, it meets state standards and the standards are not sufficient. And then where do we go with that?
Yeah, so part of the rationale for the conditions, and I presume some of the discussion we're going to bring back to you in a little while on the moratorium findings is we need some more tools in order to ask for this information. This is very, what the sound study that we briefly highlighted here is a very, very complex study. It's actually it's difficult to understand it just reading the reports. I can't imagine what goes into the background of creating all of the data to get the information in the first place. So part of what I presume we're going to end up at least discussing is how we can get the information from the user in some ways to demonstrate there is a problem or not, or demonstrate there is not a problem, because that's kind of this, catch-22 we find ourselves in with complaints and trying to address the neighbors' concerns.
Yeah. So what you're saying is these standards and how they're coming up with them, we may very well incorporate it in the moratorium. What's coming out.
They definitely will be considered and discussed,
good.
and I'm sure brought up
Glad to
at
hear it.
council again. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion on this?
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question
Alderman
for regarding the sound study. So this is my first time seeing one. Do you mind walking me through either Figure 3 or Figure 4? I know it says that it meets the state in DuPage requirements for sound, but I honestly don't know what this graph is saying.
Sure. Okay, so when we do a sound study, the easiest way to consume the results is the figure you're looking at. We call this a sound map, right? So each color between the thin black lines is a 1 decibel range of sound emissions coming from the worst case predicted condition of the Edge data center campus. So this figure here is nighttime chiller only operation, because we're not going to turn the generators on at night unless there's a power failure, and that's not regulated. So when they're on purpose for testing, we need to meet the day code limits, and otherwise we need to meet the night code limits with them off. So that's the limits we're looking at here. So in most jurisdictions throughout the United States, the number you're seeing represented by the color, for example, the yellow is 45, is the number that's regulated. That's not how things work in Illinois. In Illinois, what's regulated is slices of frequencies that we call octave bands. You might know what an octave is on a piano, right? It's between this C and this C, and that C and the next C, and so forth. So we have low octaves, middle octaves, and high octaves. Illinois regulates each of those octave bands with a different number. We could show a figure like this or a figure like this for every octave band if we wanted, but nobody would care. It would be a mess, right? So what we've done is we've said, hey, this is the overall sound level, what we call the A-weighted decibel value. That's what when everyone says, oh, it's 50 decibels or it's 80 decibels or whatever, that's generally what they're talking about. So this is kind of how loud it sounds if you were to walk this site when all the Edge stuff is on. And it's important to realize, in the absence of any other noise, this is an emissions-only model from Edge because that's what's regulated. So it's how we predict and compare apples to apples values. So there's no noise from highways, there's no noise from planes, there's no noise from bugs, there's no noise from dogs barking, residential air conditioners, whatever. This is just Edge noise. So in our report, that they've seen or not seen? So in our report, there's tables where we show the actual octave band sound limits predicted by this model, which correspond to the colors you're seeing, and we compare that to the Illinois limits, and we show that we either exceed those limits by, I shouldn't use the word exceed, that we comply with those limits with a significant margin in most cases, or we just meet them in the worst cases, because that's what we've designed this site to do. So we show that we don't exceed the limits for the daytime or nighttime conditions, depending on which scenario and which groups of equipment are operating. So, does that answer your question, or should I keep talking?
It does. So, essentially, so the dark green, I'm looking because that's where the residents are. The decibels are 35. You're saying, is that correct, or is those trees?
No, you can't see any trees here. So it is 35 in the dark green, but then you can see it goes back to yellow. So what we're looking at, I should have mentioned this. This is a calculation of how loud it is 5 feet above grade elevation. So if you walk out into a detention basin and dip down, and I'm carrying a microphone around, and I wind up down here, it gets quieter. But then when you go back up to the residential development elevation, it actually gets louder again.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So yes, the dark
Okay.
green is 35, but then we go back into like the mid 40s at the houses. So when you look at the legend in the bottom left, that's the actual sound level at someone's window, outside someone's window.
Okay.
And the model also takes into account grades, right? You know, any hills in between. I mean, and it's measuring at 5 feet of elevation at every step of the way.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
That
Yes,
blue line
Alderman
that's there, is that a barrier?
No, that's the site property line.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Do you want us to
So-
take a vote on the conditions first,
So-
Jill, or how do you want us to do?
No, I think the conditions are being placed on the final plan. So there are there's no conditions for the vacation and only one conditions for the plat that meets city engineer approval or standard condition. So I would say approve the conditions when you're approving the final plan with the conditions as staff read.
Okay, any further discussion or questions from the alderman of our committee? If not, is there a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Which one? They will have to approve the 3 ones?
We have to do
You
one at
wanna
a
go
time.
by
So
one
the
by
first
one?
one is 25-0738, and this is for the vacating a water main.
Motion to
easement.
approve that one?
Second.
Motion made by Alderwoman Garza, second by Alderman Benuelos. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carried 4-0. And 25-0735, that's a revision, approving a revision to the final plat for lots 1 and 5, and that's including the conditions.
Motion
The
to
one
approve?
condition about engineering.
The one condition about engineering, okay. Is there a motion to that effect?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Moved by Alderman Wani Garza, second by Alderman Benuelos. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried 4-0. And then the last one is 25-0736, and this is approving revision of the final plan. Is
With
there-
the
With all the conditions that you
With
read.
conditions.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Alderwoman Garza, second by Alderman Benuelos. Any further discussion? Anything the staff wants to add? No? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried 4-0. Okay. See you at the committee of the whole. Next
you.
week, right? No, next
Motion
week
to
is
adjourn
Fifth
the
Tuesday.
meeting.
So this is a final plan and plat, so
Oh.
this will be approved with the 5 per BCE with a 5-day appeal period. The plat and vacation will go all the way to city council.
Which is next
which
Wednesday.
is- Yeah, so it is 2 weeks. It's the,
So does the staff alert the council that we have a?
we'll let the alderman's office know that it's a 5th week, and they'll send out
Yes.
email letting all the aldermen, men and women know that it's a 5th week and that it's, the appeal period is over before
Yeah, okay.
COW.
Yeah, I want to make sure the aldermen in the area know that in case they want to appeal it.
And
so.
I've also sent the conditions to Alderwoman Bade.
Okay, great. Okay. Any other business you could come before the BZNE? If not, a motion for adjournment is in
Motion
order.
adjourn?
Moved by Alderwoman Garza, second by Alderman Benuelos. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carried 4-0. We are adjourned at 4:58 PM. Thank you, one and all.